I'm delighted now to be joined by a very good old friend of mine, Jonathan Haslam. Jonathan's the former Chief Communications Secretary to Sir John Major, which is when I first met him, and we've known each other since. With that comms hat on, Jonathan, not a political question so much as a professional one, the marketing of this package has been very muted. Jeremy Hunt didn't even do the morning after round on television studios and the rest of it. Is that because it is a hard sell to hard-working Tories out in the country?
It's indeed, and thank you for having me on the show, by the way, Alistair. It's great to see you again. It is indeed a very tough sell, but we're in a tough position. And I think one of the things that I would draw out of this is that in the first instance, the government has been placed in a pretty invidious position. First of all, we had COVID. That's a £400 billion bill. Then we've had the outrageous invasion of the Ukraine from Putin, which has done terrible things to the energy market. It's increased it by eightfold. You've also had the unwinding of what is known as quantitative easing, which many people would say is printing money by the Bank of England to keep the wheels of industry going in difficult times. So you've got all of those factors going on. And I think the thing that struck me most recently about trying to communicate this is the Conservative Party has been talking to itself for the last 18 months over the dramas with Boris Johnson. And then we had that brief meteoric crash, courtesy of Liz Truss. And it's the Liz Truss problem, I think, which is really highlighted for people, incompetence in government. Because what she did was to urge the markets, who panicked, to increase interest rates far higher than they would otherwise have done and far faster. So that will come off a little bit. But I think Jeremy Hunt played, he's playing a game of 5-card stud with 3 cards at the moment. So he's done about as well as you could expect under the circumstances. But what we all need to recognise, and you've just identified it, is that the middle of Britain is going to be squeezed. You said £20,000 over 6 years, entirely understandable. And the other thing that we haven't noticed, we've talked a lot about stealth taxes, Alistair. What we've not talked about is stealth cuts happening now. Because when you have, as you know, 10% inflation, but you've said to the government departments, actually, you're not getting any more money, so you just kind of manage your way out of it. So we've had cuts that we don't know about, and probably the departments don't know about at the moment. So there is a grave danger of the further disintegration of some public services. And we've had a sticking plaster for the NHS, which is good.
Yeah. Let me come in there, because remind folk at home that you're also, you did communications in the city. You know a lot about the city and how those markets work as well. Here's the problem that strikes me. Even if that analysis that you've echoed there is right, we are in a recession right now. The OBR and the IFS say that'll go on for at least another year. What this package is doing is taking huge amounts of demand, whether it's extra taxes that you and I have to pay, or those stealth cuts in public spending that you've just eloquently described, out of the economy. The likelihood is this Conservative Party will face the electorate in the depths of a recession with little to offer. It's like a suicide note, Jonathan.
It's only a suicide note, Alistair, if it's done with the intention of killing yourself off. It is a plea for time. And that is the great enemy of the Conservative Party at the moment, because many of the things which are talked about go a long way down into 2025, 2026. Just for one example, let's take an extreme one. We need Sizewell C for energy purposes, for energy security purposes. It's not going to be producing electricity for 15 years at the very earliest, assuming we can get through ridiculous planning applications and all of that needs to be done. So there's a lot of coming tomorrow. And it's right that it's put there as aspirations. There are great things this country can do. But we need to get away with some of the politics. I'd just like to make one point about science. It's so important that we build on those strengths that we have as a country. But I was distressed to hear Jeremy Hunt saying, and we'll be looking at northern universities. Now, there's nothing against northern universities, but if you're in a problem, you look to your great exemplars. There is an Oxford-Cambridge arc which could be developed, and from their developments, that will also go and level up. But you need to build on strengths, not start from a weak base and trying to build from there. And that was a really disappointing thing about trying to appeal to red wall seats.